Hello everyone, hello and welcome to History Again with Mr. Shield. I hope you're all right, hope you're doing well. It's a Wednesday, I believe, so I hope you're doing well on this Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. I hope you're having a nice time. Right, history today. Today we're doing lesson 3 of Persia and Greece. We're learning about Greece today. We're moving on from Persia a little bit. We'll circle back round to them later, but we're moving on. And today we're learning about ancient Greece. Okay, we're talking about 2,500 years ago, and we're learning about the city-states of Greece. Okay, today. Now, in our lesson, you need a sheet. Okay, I mean, you could probably just kind of make it up as you go along and do it off the screen, but it's better if you have a sheet, if you print it off from Google Classroom or collect it from school. The packs are there if you have printer troubles. The sheet has got 5 parts today. 5 parts. Amazing, isn't it? And we'll fill it in as we go. And I'll say, let's do part 1 or let's do part 2 now. And then I'll tell you when, okay? So just if you've got it in front of you, watch the video. We're going to learn some stuff. All right, so let's start with the sheet. So if you can look at the front of your sheet, the very top of your sheet, we're going to have a go choosing the correct option. Okay, so you're going to see for each section, each A, B, C, and D, 4 different options. Okay, let's see if you can circle the correct one. So in front of you on that top row, you should be able to see the names Darius, Cyrus, Caesar, and Troy. Now, can you circle the name of the founder of the Persian Empire? And founder means a person who created it, who begun it in the first place. Was it Darius? Was it Cyrus? Was it Caesar? Was it Troy? You pick, circle it, put a tick by it, whatever you like. Right, on to B, the special kingdom. This special kingdom was conquered without violence by Cyrus. Was it Medes? Was it Persia? Was it Babylon? Or was it Egypt? Okay, circle the right choice there. The name of the King of Kings, the 3rd ruler of the Persian Empire, who would expand its empire to Egypt and to the Indus Valley. Was that Darius? Was it Cyrus? Was it Caesar? Or was it Troy? Have a go at circling who you think it might be who expanded the empire to such extent. Now, the last one is the name given to the smaller regions of the Persian Empire when it was split into sections to make it easier to manage. Was it called regions or kingdoms, emperies or satrapies? Okay, make a decision. Which one would it be? Let's see if you can remember your learning from the last lesson. I'll pause there, or you can pause there. I won't pause there, but you can if you want to stop and just have a little think about it. If not, on we go. Now, let's double check our learning so far. Okay, so far we've done 2 lessons about the Persian Empire. So let's work out where we are. We've got some gruesome, violent images here of people having a good old brouhaha, a bit of fisticuffs with some, spears and shields and whatnot. That's how they solved, wars at the time. They didn't have guns and tanks and planes and all those horrible things. They had to do it with swords and shields, because it was 2,500 years ago. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Let's double check our learning. The Persian Empire had grown. Darius had expanded across to Egypt in the west and the Indus Valley in the east. It was huge. If you were part of the Persian Empire, Darius was your ruler, and he split the empire into satrapies, and each one was ruled by a satrap, the governor of that local place. You followed his rules if you were in the empire. You followed Darius's rules and you paid taxes to Darius. And he wanted to make the empire bigger, bigger and bigger. But not everybody wanted to be in the Persian Empire. They quite liked being in their own little thing, really. Thanks very much, Darius. Darius, though, he wanted to conquer Greece. He was having a good look at Greece thinking, yeah, that's a nice place. That'll be good in my empire. That will fit right in. Well, the people of Greece had other ideas. So today we're going to learn about these people of Greece. So, hey, look at this beautiful picture of ancient Greece. And this is one of the ancient city-states in Greece. And you can see here, like rivers, the coast. You can see some beautiful buildings and some really lovely architecture. Now, Here's a map of the region that we call Greece. And you can see some of the biggest and most important places in Greece. We've got names here. Let me read them out for you. Delphi, Athens, Corinth, Olympia, Sparta. And we call these places, back in ancient Greece, we call these places in ancient Greece city-states. City-states. Now, they were large cities that had their own rules and government, okay? They had their own government, they had their own rules, but they weren't quite different or separate countries. But they weren't quite the same either, okay? So they kind of existed in this weird state where they weren't quite separate enough to be a different country altogether, but they weren't similar enough where they could be the same country all as one thing, okay? These city-states. So let's have a look now, all right? Part 2, I believe, of your sheet is where we've got to fill in some words. Which words goes where? And I'll read you the sentences. So there's 4 words to go in that we've learned so far. Name, government, city-states, and country. Okay, let's have a look. So ancient Greece, as we know it, was not a name, government, city-state, or country. It was actually a collection of lots of, and then choose the word, and each had its own g, you can see a sort of G there, it might give you a little hint, and its own army, okay? So see if you can fit in the right words. Each city-state was called by a different, all right, pause there and write in the words. Have you paused? Pause there. All right, if you're watching on, then let's have a little look and see if you've written in the right words. The right words? The right words. The right words. I got confused there. Ancient Greece was not a country. It wasn't a single country. It was made up of lots of city-states. Absolutely. Not quite the same, not quite different, somewhere in a grey middle area there. Each had its own, not giraffes, government and its own army. And each city-state was called by a different name. Absolutely. I hope you got those right. If you didn't get them right, you put a line through them, rub them out, put the right ones in. Okay, put the right ones in. All right, let's move on. So, the Greek word for a city-state was polis. Polis. Have a go at saying that. Polis. Not bad. You did a good job. You could have been better. Give it another go. Polis. Yeah, much improved, much better. You did a better job with that second time. Right, Athens was a polis. Sparta, down here, that was a polis. Corinth, up here, sort of in between Athens and Sparta, also a polis. And that's the Greek word for a city-state. Can you see any other polises on that map? Let's have a look. Ooh, I can see 2. I hope you can see the other 2 as well. There were more than that. There were more than that in terms of city-states, but those were some of the biggest, okay? And Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Olympia, Delphi, they were all polises, okay? They were all their own city-states, right? Polis. It's kind of a nice word to say, actually. I quite like saying that. Right. Each Greek polis, each Greek city-state was different. But each Greek city-state, each Greek polis, had some things in common. For example, the highest point in every polis was called the Acropolis. Acropolis. And that was the highest point in each polis. On top of the Acropolis, there was often a religious building called a temple. Okay? Now, there's a picture here. There's hopefully a picture you can see. All right, you can see the Acropolis in Athens, and there's a temple on top of the Acropolis in Athens dedicated to the goddess Athena. So often these temples were dedicated to a certain god or goddess, okay? And some polises worshipped one particular god or goddess more than others, while other polises might have a different god or goddess that they preferred and they like to build bigger temples to. It was up to that polis. Because they were different. They were different places. Right, Let's have a look here at all these different acropolises you can see on the screen. We've got the Acropolis in Athens, up there at the highest point. So the Acropolis is the highest point in a polis, and often they built temples. You can see the Acropolis of Sparta, and there's a temple built on top as well. And in Thebes, I need to double check my vocabulary there. Thebes, there's an Acropolis at the highest point of the Thebes polis. So the Acropolis, the highest point. We're just learning all the words today. We're doing a really good job. Now, there were some similarities. There were some similarities between these Greek city-states. They weren't so different that they could be different countries. For example, they all had an acropolis, like we just discussed. They all spoke the same language. So they had a joint language in common. They all worshipped the same gods. I mean, they might pick and choose which ones they worship more than others, but they all worshipped, Zeus and Athena and some other ones that we'll get to next week when we talk about Greek gods and goddesses. And they had very similar types of buildings in each polis. And we'll talk about that as well. What types of buildings, you ask? Let's find out. So, each polis would have a market square to buy and sell goods. And you can see in this image, a market square where there's sort of like people selling their wares. There seems to be some fruits and vegetables going on there. There's maybe a guy giving a speech because it's a busy central part of the polis that this market square is taking place. So this person might be giving a speech, look, or saying the news, or he might be teaching a lesson. Look, all those guys have got their hands up. Maybe it's a school of some kind. Who knows? It's just a painting. But each polis would have a market square. Each polis would have an outdoor space. Yeah, for exercise. And this was called a gymnasium. And we still have that word today. We call it the gym, which is short for gymnasium, a word that comes from ancient Greece, which means a space for exercise. But only men were allowed there. Only men were allowed in ancient Greece in the gymnasiums because the Greeks, they didn't wear any clothes when they did exercise. So they take off their pants, they take off everything, and do some push-ups and stuff, or ancient Greek exercise versions of push-ups, I don't know. But because they do it with no clothes on, it was just for men. That's the rule that they had. So every polis, generally speaking, had a market square for trading and gathering and news and whatnot, and also had a gymnasium so people could do exercises. And when I say people, I mean just men, because society wasn't that fair. Now, each polis also had a theatre where actors would put on plays and tell stories that made people laugh and cry. And the theatre was outdoors without a roof. Now, people sat on sort of stone steps carved into a really steep hill so they could all see the stage. And this was called an amphitheatre. So let's have a look. An amphitheatre. Look, you can see a nice picture there. It's kind of overgrown a little bit because it's ancient and maybe the grass is growing and no one's really allowed to put a lawnmower across these ancient amphitheatres just in case they damage them. So let's look at the next part of our sheet, okay? On the next part of your sheet, you've got the words polis, acropolis, gymnasium, and amphitheatre. 4 words. And I've actually got the meanings for those 4 words on the screen in blue, but I've mixed them up. To try and trick you. Okay, so you're going to have to decide which one is the right one and write it in. So let's have a look. Is a polis an outdoor space for theatre? A space in each polis for exercise? Is it the highest point in any polis, or is it the Greek name for a city-state? Interesting. Make your decision. Which one is it? And write it in that space there. All right, little bit of writing, but you can do it. You've got the energy. Then have a look at Acropolis. Is that an outdoor space for theatre? Is it a space in each polis for exercise? Is it the highest point in any polis? Or is it the Greek name for a city-state? Again, make the decision. And do the same for gymnasium and amphitheatre. All right? Good luck with that. Now, listen, if you're going to do that, you might as well pause the video, here. So you can see the meanings, you can work out where they go and write them down in your sheet or on your sheet, okay? Right, pause now. Did you pause? All right, let's get on. Now, we were talking about policies and how they had some similarities, like language, and they had an Acropolis, and they believed in the same gods. But there were some differences. For example, Athens and Sparta were really different in how they were ruled. And Athens and Sparta were two of the biggest city-states, the biggest policies of the time. Now, Sparta had a king, and he ruled the city-state, and he made all the laws. And his name was King Leonidas of Sparta. That's one example of a Spartan king. There were others. There were loads of others. But King Leonidas is quite famous. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on in our topic. Now, Athens was different to Sparta because they didn't have a king. They didn't have a king in Athens. They actually got loads of free men, as they called them, to help make new laws. Okay, so they tried to do it in a way which kind of included more people than Sparta, because Sparta just had a king, he made the rules, and you followed the rules that he made. Okay, so there's one big difference between Sparta and Athens, and other policies had their own ways of doing things. So Corinth and Delphi, they might have a different system of government. Now, in Sparta was different because men, they had to be tough. You had to be tough in Sparta, son. When a Spartan boy was 7, he was trained to be a soldier. He didn't get a choice. He didn't get a choice. You're in the army, and that's that. Spartan boys were beaten if they weren't tough enough in the army. And this made the soldiers of Sparta really fierce, really fierce. In Athens, though, men could choose to become soldiers. They could choose to join the army if they wanted to. And each polis, Athens and Sparta and Corinth and Delphi, they all wanted to be the best polis. They all wanted to be the best city-state. Athens really wanted to be the most powerful of all the Greek city-states. But so did Sparta. And sometimes that led to trouble. Yeah, trouble. Now, let's look at some true and false questions on your sheet. Part 4. Right, let's look at the options together and make a choice. Is it true or false? True or false? Let's find out. Greece was made up of lots of different city-states. Is that true or false? True or false? I think you know the answer. The name for a city-state was police. Police. Is that true or false? You decide. The city-states each spoke a different language and prayed to different gods. True or false? In the polis of Sparta, boys joined the army at only 7 years old. True or false? And each polis had similar buildings like temples, gymnasiums, and theatres. True or false? Let's see what you think. Tick what you think's right. If you want a bit more time just to think about it, to really think about it deeply, you can pause now. Otherwise, on we go. Now, we talked a little bit about Sparta, and we talked a little bit about Athens. So today we're just going to put down a couple of ways they're similar and a couple of ways they're different. All right, so let's have a good think. Now, in this box, the final part of our lesson today is thinking about these similarities and differences. So I've put some questions on the screen to help you think. So, did they speak the same language? If they did, you can put that in the similarities box. Did they both have kings? Athens and Sparta, did they both have kings? You can put that in the similarities or the differences box. Did they both have armies? Is that similar or different? Did they both have an Acropolis? Is that something they had in common, or is that something they didn't? Did they both make people join the army, or did people get to choose? Is that a similarity or a difference? And did they both want to be the best polis? Were they ambitious about being the best? Is that a similarity or a difference? You might also think about types of buildings they have in common, or you might think about gods or religion that they had in common as well, and other differences that you might just research or already know about. You feel free to pop in any learning you've got there. Okay. So that's the final part of the lesson. If you want to keep these questions up to help your thinking, I'd like you to try to get a couple of similarities and a couple of differences, just to really cap off this excellent lesson and all this excellent learning that you've done so far. Okay, so let's stop sharing for a minute. Let's stop sharing for a minute and go back through here. Pause if you need this. Let's have a look. And what I just wanted to say was, well done so far with all your history learning. I hope you have a great day. Good luck with everything, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.